MOZA has just released the most premium looking Airbus hardware I've ever had on my desk, and I genuinely think it sets a new benchmark. So let's check out the ecosystem. What MOZA has put together here is 3 panels that function as one cohesive ecosystem. We've got the FCU, dual EFIS, and MCDU. And the question everyone's been asking is, how does it stack up against WinCTRL? I've used both extensively, and after spending some serious time with this ecosystem, the answer is clearer than I expected. Kind of. But at the centerpiece of this ecosystem is a full 1-to-1 scale FCU with real travel distances and a custom built LCD that reproduces the asymmetric characters of the real FCU. The knobs themselves feel excellent, smooth, precise, and very refined. MOZA has clearly focused heavily on the realism, and it shows. One detail that I really appreciate is the buttons actually sit completely flush with the panel. That kind of sounds minor, but when you're coming from WinCTRL, it's definitely noticeable, and it adds quite a lot to the immersion. And I think at this price point, it's as close as you're getting to a real FCU under your hands. Now, I will say, personally, I much prefer a stronger detent. Even though it's technically not as realistic, it's just more satisfying to me. And MOZA's knobs are slightly on the smoother side. So for some people, that will be perfect, but for others like me, you might notice it. But that's a personal preference, not a flaw. However, the FCU isn't actually the most interesting part of this ecosystem. The EFIS units do something I genuinely didn't see coming. A lot of people will probably treat this as an afterthought, and that's a big mistake, because MOZA has built something into the EFIS units that completely change how they function. Each panel doubles up as a second control layer. We're talking weather radar, transponder controls, APU functions, wind shear, TCAS. And I know what you're thinking, you probably think that's a bit weird and cringe, but trust me, it's actually pretty cool. Because it actually solves a huge problem. You see, I never have enough controllers, and sometimes I don't want my desk to be completely cluttered up, because then I've got no room for my hands or my keyboard. But this eliminates that, especially for people that use this at your desk. And the best part? The switches feel incredibly tight, everything has a satisfying click, and the encoders feel very premium. The overall quality matches the FCU perfectly, which makes sense. But I'll be honest with you, that's not what I was excited about. Because when I saw this get announced at FS Weekend, the first thing I saw was the MCDU. And now that I actually have it in my hands, I'm completely blown away. The first thing that surprised me was actually taking it out of the box, because when I put my hand on it, I felt metal. That's right, this isn't just a plastic MCDU. And my god, is this thing amazing. So the front panel is actually a die-cast metal with a refined surface and finishing that really makes it come together. Like, I'm telling you, this thing feels incredible, but it's got so much more to it. This is a 1-to-1 replica of the real A320 MCDU. And it also features a 5.1 high-res IPS display. Now, this thing is razor sharp, especially when we compare it to WinCTRL. And don't worry, we'll get to that, because that's one of the biggest issues I've had with WinCTRL. Now, the sizing of this unit is actually extremely accurate. I had one of my friends come over who's a real A320 pilot and check it out, and he said even the buttons are scaled correctly as well, and even said that this felt fantastic and correct. Every single press delivers a satisfying click without feeling cheap or clunky. I don't know how else to describe it other than like a really nice clicky keyboard, but it doesn't feel artificial. It just feels solid and perfect. But again, MOZA took it a step further because they included even more with this MCDU. This isn't just an MCDU. They've built in a scratch pad mode so you can take down notes as you're flying, as well as a checklist mode, which is incredibly handy because they're mapped to those blank buttons. So anytime you press it, you can choose to go to either scratch pad mode or to the checklist mode. One thing that MOZA has always consistently done is their software. It's simple, it's easy, it's next to plug and play, and it's clean. But it also might be one of the downsides, and we'll come to that. But first, let's talk about supported aircraft out of the box. So out of the box, this ecosystem will support the A320, the A330, the Phoenix series, the TOLIS series, and work across both flight sim and X-plane. So for most Airbus simmers watching this, that list will cover everything you need. The one area MOZA still might have place to grow is custom profile support. Now this likely could get added as a feature later on, so just keep that in mind. But the benefit is it makes this unit virtually plug and play, which means you don't have to leave this on your desk, although you'll probably want to because it is that good looking. But you can easily plug this in and be in the simulator within seconds, and it will work flawlessly with those aircraft. But if you're finding this video useful, quickly drop a like because it helps the channel a ton. But let's actually compare it directly against WinCTRL. The first and most obvious thing is the build quality. Now, WinCTRL isn't bad by any means, but when you pick up their products, you can feel that it's hollow and plastic. It feels on the cheaper end, which isn't necessarily bad, but the buttons on the FCU and EFIS for WinCTRL just feel very cheap. Whereas MOZA, it feels very premium. The buttons are completely flush with the unit, so when you press a button in, it actually goes into the unit like it should, where with WinCTRL, it sticks out and has a very plastic feeling. On top of that, a lot of the knobs are a bit more sturdy. Something I noticed when I first got my WinCTRL FCU is how flimsy the knobs actually were. There's quite a bit of play in the design, but on the MOZA panel, it's much less of a wobble. But the biggest thing you'll notice is the size difference. The WinCTRL unit almost looks like it's been scaled up compared to the MOZA. Along with that, the color is also slightly different, which is a very minor detail, but something to note. The MOZA is technically closer to the real Airbus blue. But there is one thing missing off the MOZA FCU that WinCTRL did, and that's the black plastic glare shield that's on top of the unit. Now, MOZA didn't include this, which is probably a huge benefit to home cockpit builders, but for us who use it on the desk, it might be a feature that you miss. Specifically me, I kind of like that black plastic trim. It just added a finishing look to the unit. But let's take a look at the MCDU side by side. Now, I'll be completely honest, this isn't even a really fair review. These are in a completely different league to each other. The WinCTRL one gets the job done. It's not bad, but it's also far from good. The size and scale is completely incorrect, and the feeling of the unit is just a bit on the cheaper side. It does feel better than the FCU unit, but it's not by much. The first and most irritating thing with the WinCTRL unit is it never felt right. It never looked right. The display just had something about it that just felt wrong. And it wasn't until one of my buddies talked to me and said not only is the size incorrect, but the display was the biggest issue. Because the size of the display was off, the aspect ratio was wrong, and it wasn't very sharp. Where MOZA came in, and it's virtually a one-to-one of what's in the real aircraft. The screen looks incredibly sharp and clear, the housing is made of metal, and the buttons feel 10 times better. Not only that, but connectivity is much better as well. WinCTRL, for whatever reason, has the USB-C facing down, which means if you use a straight USB-C cable, you're going to run into some issues. But thankfully, MOZA thought of this and they made their USB-C cable come straight up, which means even if you use a straight USB-C cable, it doesn't jab directly down into the ground, which is kind of a minor detail, but actually using the product, it's a huge deal. Now, is a MOZA unit perfect? No, there's definitely things that can be changed and improved, like the software. Having custom support for aircraft I think is a huge deal, and relying on MOZA to add those aircraft in their own time isn't always the right answer. So hopefully that comes in the future. Another thing to note, if you like very clicky detents on your encoders, then this might not be the unit for you. This has a much higher quality feeling encoder, but it's smoother. There is detents, but it's nowhere near as aggressive as WinCTRL. So let's sum it up. Is the MOZA Airbus ecosystem worth it? Yeah, Absolutely, for me it is, especially the MCDU. This is a huge upgrade for me over WinCTRL. The build quality is excellent, the displays look unreal, and the controls feel very premium. And it's also an ecosystem. The FCU and EFIS all connect together, and the MCDU is a single USB-C cable, and it all works plug and play. And if you're looking to build an A320 home cockpit, then I'd say look at this unit because it's much easier to work with. The sizing, the feel, everything is a lot more realistic. But if you already have the WinCTRL stuff and are considering an upgrade, if immersion and build quality matter to you, then MOZA is definitely a step up. Don't get me wrong, WinCTRL is a solid product, but MOZA in this case have done it a bit better, at least in my opinion. But this is huge for MOZA, because in the past they've normally done products that are a bit more generic. This is the first product line that is dedicated for one specific aircraft, which means hopefully in the future we'll see even more. But as always, a huge thanks to MOZA for sending this out. If you tune into my live streams or watch my videos, you're guaranteed to see it at some point, so you'll see it in the future. But most importantly, a thank you to all of you guys. Make sure to hit like, get subscribed, and until next time, I'll catch you then.